r/AskReddit. What was banned in your high school? A decent education. So edgy. I wish memes were banned. Yoga pants. Both guys and girls were heartbroken. Edit. The full list. Nothing 3 inches or less above the knee. Exercise tights. Hats. Headbands. Sunglasses. Pants not secured at the waist. Spaghetti straps or anything that shows XY shoulders. Anything that shows midriff. Anything that shows cleavage. Anything gang related. Anything with vulgar writing or images. Heavy coats. Any piercing not on the ears or nose. And last but not least, all yoga pants and leggings. It's a shame that wasn't a thing in the late 90s. Single greatest creation mankind has ever made. Nah, sundresses is where it's at. Weapons. Of course they listed handguns and knives. But they went on to describe basically anything that could cause harm to another student. We had to do a project showing off our knowledge of the student handbook. So me and a friend made a presentation of banned items consisting of a slideshow showing all the ways you could harm a person using school utensils. Stabbing a pencil in the eye. Yep. Breaking safety sixes and creating a shiv with tape. Oh yeah. Favorite was a thumbtack grenade. Create a small cube out of notebook paper with a string taped to one part of the inside walls. Fill it with thumbtacks and fold it closed. Tie string to finger and throw. Tacks everywhere. First week of school was great. Our school had a rifle team. And they would just keep them in their lockers. We had a small contingent of JROTC students. But they were advised to leave their rifles at home or in their cars. Not high school. But in elementary school we weren't allowed to run during recess. Something about liability. Edit for some clarity. This was early 2000s. When No Child Left Behind came around, I think. I was there less than a year and we moved to a different state. And none of the other schools I went to in that state had this rule. That school was strange. We would switch from English to Spanish every other day. I had a teacher who insisted I was autistic and put me through a bunch of pointless tests. All that fun stuff. Although I guess from the responses on here I wasn't alone. Came here to say this. And then we weren't allowed to stand around in groups because of gang activity. These rules combined resulted in very exciting games of walk tag. Reminds me of the school uniforms episode of The Simpsons. Tag. Now you are the one who is it. Understood. Bagged baby carrots. They came in these little plastic bags that left the carrots with an off-putting sliminess. However off-putting that sliminess was, it was a great lubricant such that, if you squeezed the carrot between your thumb and pointer finger, the baby carrot would be launched 30 feet or so. Everyone would just buy up the carrots and shoot them around the cafeteria or in class. The school decided to switch to a different brand of carrots after that. TL. Dr. Slimy launchable carrots. A friend of mine hid one of those packets somewhere once. When he remembered it a few weeks later it had become a liquid. I work in a big chain company and no one ever bothered to check the baby carrots because they had no dates. I come after a month of work and just decided to check them, and the last 3 were nothing but carrot juice. Shorts. Before I started going there, they had a problem with girls wearing really high shorts, Daisy Dukes as they were known at the time. They kept threatening that if the girls wouldn't start wearing longer shorts then all shorts were banned. Nobody listened. And shorts were banned. Who really suffered? Though? Guys. Girls could still wear skirts and wore short ones while guys were stuck with pants. Now, I know a couple of you guys are thinking I would have just worn a skirt. Let me tell you. In the 90s in New Orleans public school. No you wouldn't have. New Orleans public schools have mandatory uniforms now. And high schools still don't allow shorts for boys. So at least you didn't have to fucks with that. Doors on the bathroom stalls. The administration took all of the doors off the stalls in the bathrooms. All of them. 1 to take a hit. 2 ducking bad. Unless you're comfortable with an audience. And 4 girls. They're just miserable no matter what. They said it was to deter kids from smoking. Because, you know, smoke totally stays in the stall when the door is closed. It was ducking sickening. NGL that sounds super illegal. If you have to hit you have to hit, and they can't take your privacy away when doing so. We had the same hit in my school in the 90s. Privacy isn't a right. And you have to show you were actually harmed to win a suit. Just being made to feel uncomfortable isn't apparently enough. 4 friends and myself bought 75 zero ducks coins that say 0 ducks, and handed them out when somebody told stupid stories or something you didn't care about. It became a legitimate currency circulating the school. It was banned so some people stopped. But this one kid truly gave 0 ducks. They had an assembly banning them, and some kid calmly stood up, walked down the steps of the bleachers, walked to the podium at which the principal was standing, reached into his pocket, and handed the principal 5 shiny 0 ducks. It was the best thing I've ever witnessed to this day. I want to believe. There was a rumor of someone who has recently moved to town being a member/former member of the Bloods. So my school banned anything red. Red notebook, suspended. Red hat, suspended. Red pen, better be at teachers or guess what? Yep, suspended. This is when you start getting people to wear all blue stuff to school. Team Aqua. Hugging. Because of a parental complaint. Hugs are drugs. Just say no. Our homecoming shirts were banned from our homecoming game and the remainder of the year. We were playing the Trojans and our shirts said Trojans break under pressure. They made us put black duct tape over under pressure. So we walked around all day with shirts that said Trojans break. Edit, before you ask. No. I'm from Arkansas. The mighty sand lizards. That literally doesn't make it any better. It can still be interpreted as a statement about condoms. It made it worse, but we wore it with pride. So in high school I made up this game my junior year. Assassin's Creed was a big thing at the time, and I was pretty interested by it. The game was simply called Assassin. The object was to survive until the end of the school day. You took a black Sharpie marker and drew a line across anyone who was playing's neck to kill them. If you had a line on your neck you were out for the day. One day at lunch we decided to actually plan it out and run with the game the next day. Unfortunately word got out and the whole school was in on it. I've never seen so many paranoid high schoolers in my life. People would walk around in hoodies and scarves just to stay alive. Clans began after someone found packs of colored markers. Lunch was a hellscape as students would nonchalantly slash each other's necks with Sharpie markers. It lasted about 3 days before the clans got large and teachers figured out why there were lines across everyone's necks. They couldn't find out who started it. No one knew. Everyone knew they were just having fun playing this game. They banned the game and said anyone playing this game would be suspended. I got away safe. I just realized now. I was the best assassin. TL. Doctor, I made an edgy socially questionable game. Teachers found out. Banned game and started suspending people who continued playing it. Edit. Looking back on this a day later. Wasn't expecting this big of a response. I did come up with it at lunch, but it was based off an extremely popular game that was made in the past, so I'm sure many others had a very similar idea. Love that everyone is sharing their versions and stories though. Thanks. We have this on every school band field trip. Greatest game ever. Except we had safe zones. Including buses, water breaks, and especially, no questions asked airports and planes. Air marshals don't take kindly to kids screaming oh my god Mark just got assassinated. Huh. I wonder why. Water bottles. Kids were bringing vodka into school. Oh. And color day, ACA class/school spirit day, had to get modified and eventually shut down after kids came home with ketchup, honey and mustard over their clothes/in their hair. We had water bottles banned for the same reason. This really sucked for me as a member of the cross country and track team, as keeping hydrated throughout the day was pretty important. We either had to hide bottles or be the annoying person that drinks from the water fountain without saving any for the fishes in the ocean. Additionally, our administrators were jerks about it. They realized this was a rule they could enforce without being intimidated by the actual bad kids. So they were super strict about the water bottle thing. You had straight A students who never had a detention getting yelled at and having their water bottles taken away. Happened in my county too. Real big surprise when a football player at another school had a heat stroke and died during practice. When I was in 9th grade I had a friend in 8th. I had moved to high school and she was on her last year of middle school. For high school we had to complete 40 hours of community service to graduate. So I volunteered to help my old school's art teacher, who was the coolest guy ever. When I was walking through the halls I saw my old friend and we both freaked out a little, and I gave her a hug. They literally had a school assembly that day about not touching at all in the hallways, and I got told not to help anymore at the school over a ducking hug with a friend. A similar thing happened to me in high school. While hugging was never actually banned, I had a lady friend who had moved away surprise me by showing up after school one day. I hadn't seen her in a while, so we hugged. Bad move. The principal was right behind us, and I was almost immediately given 3 days in school suspension because our hug had obvious sexual means and desires. It was a ducking hug. My hands were on her back. The next day, while I was serving my sentence, they made sure to reiterate during the morning announcements that there was to be no public signs of affection, even though that was never actually a rule stated anywhere before just then. Dude, that sucks. I just can't believe the school I was helping told me I couldn't anymore. Like seriously, because I gave a friend a hug? Our school district is really dumb. When I was in high school, 90s, they banged bull chain necklaces because they thought everyone who wore them was in a gang. The list of things that schools think are gang symbols is ridiculously long. My school used to allow students to put nicknames on the backs of their senior jumpers. For instance, "It's raining. Her last name was Rain." All nicknames had to be approved by administration. One kid in the year above me put Salt King on his jumper. It was an approved nickname, but after a few weeks the principal decided it was obviously gang related, and the next year nicknames were banned. Instead we got our last names on our jumpers. This caused a new set of problems. There was a boy whose last name was Gay and a girl whose last name was Whore. If your name was over 13 letters you had to pay an extra per letter. The longest last name in our year was 21 letters long. Oh god. Where to start? Hair colors that don't exist in nature. Water guns. Balloons. Backpacks. Trapper keepers. Spiral bound notebooks. Pokemon. Magic the Gathering. And other TCGs. Poker cards were okay though. Piercings on boys. Piercings on girls except for the earlobe. And then only one piercing per ear. Shorts/dresses that were more than 1 inch above the knee. Leaving campus during school hours. For those asking, Columbine had just happened, and the banning of backpacks was an overreaction on the part of our BOE. We had to carry stuff in our hands and use lockers as much as possible. At my school they ruled that blonde was not a natural hair color for a nation girl. Sounds racist. I went to a magnet school that allowed free-form pen. It was pretty much recess for middle school. We started huge games of dodgeball with medicine balls. A kid got hit in the head and got knocked out. That was the end of the beginning of the greatest sport ever. A president created a similar thing called Hoover Ball, where it was volleyball with a 10-pound medicine ball. Herbert Hoover was one hardcore ducker. Wouldn't that just possible break someone's arms? Sandstorm. After a girl broke her leg at homecoming while it was playing, and the student section collapsed at a football game leading to several concussions, the school determined that it was too dangerous for us. For everyone who doesn't know the song, it's by Darude. The song was dangerous, not the apparently subpar building standard and maintenance. In their defense, there were 200 people on bleachers that were meant for 20 colored people. Not a civil rights thing. Apparently a few years prior some students had picked up bulk bottles of food coloring and used it to dye their skin. To hell with purple people. Just a bunch of grappists. Rubber bands, because kids would shoot these folded up pieces of paper that we called wasps. The battles in the hallway between class became intense and kids had serious welts. Administration stepped in and restored peace. Edit. A lot of people have been asking for instructions. All you do is fold up paper really tightly and bend it in a V shape. If you just Google paper wasp you can find many tutorials. Man. I remember people doing that in my high school too. There was this obnoxious little kid 2 grades below me who would always take it too far. He'd steal the industrial sized bangs that kept bags from falling into the garbage bins in the cafeteria and launch entire sheets of folded up paper at people. He got suspended for 2 weeks when it broke some girl's skin on her back. Bent paper clips were an issue too. Bent paper clips were an issue too. This was what we used. Then some kid got hit half an inch under his eye. And we decided we were done with the darts. Facial hair. If you looked even barely scruffy you were sent home to shave. Public school. No idea why. This was a rule at my high school back in the late 80s/early 90s as well. There was one smart-ass guy whose dad was a doctor. He got one of his dad's doctor pals to write some bullshit note saying he couldn't shave. So he wore a beard all senior year. Nobody thought to question why it was always thin and neatly trimmed. Lol. Ducking like and subscribe.